I've been asked quite a lot recently about my own photographic workflow and how I tend to do things. Well, I've made a few slides to hopefully give you a few tips and help you along with your own. Workflow is just the means you use to take one file from your camera to your computer and then further on. Basically, it's how you move a digital file through all your computers and your hard drives to get it from A to B. Everyone's workflow is different, and just because I talk about one particular thing, it may not suit your situation. So consider taking parts of my workflow and then molding it into your own. So let's get started. Basically, my workflow is in two parts. First, it's on location when I'm out in the field. In my case, it's mainly dive boats in the middle of the ocean. The golden mantra with storage is that a digital file doesn't exist unless it exists in three places, and you'll hear many people saying the same thing to you. So for myself, what that means is I have one file on the camera, one file on my laptop that I'm working with, and then also another file on an external hard drive, and there I have my three digital files: camera, laptop and hard drive. How does this work in reality? Well, I have my camera, and when I come up from a dive, for instance, I'll take my camera out of the housing, and then I want to put those files somewhere to view them and maybe start working with them straight away. Now I use Adobe Lightroom, so straight away I want to import my images straight into that program so I can see them, and I can start thinking about my workflow. Lightroom has a really good little tool when you're importing, and that's a little button that says make a second copy too. So straight away, if you tick that, you can choose a second location to save your images to. Now straight away I'd want to save those onto my laptop so I can be working, but that second location can be, for instance, on the same laptop but straight away on an external hard drive. Now I tend to use these rugged drives from G-Tech called the ATC, and these are really nice rugged drives that do take a bit of knocking about. I can spill a drink on them or seawater, and all my data is still safe. At the end of a working day, I'll take my files that are on my laptop and then copy that complete Lightroom catalogue onto another external drive. That way, if something happened to my laptop, I still have all my workings from that day backed up. And in essence, what you really want to do as well, if you can get a second hard drive, is copy the same thing to a second hard drive. Because it's always better to have more than one copy. The more copies you have, the safer you are. And by having those, one on my laptop and then another two on secondary hard drives, means that I'm pretty much covered. When I'm traveling between sites, or maybe traveling from external location back to my office, or even internationally, what you want to think about is how you travel with these files. It might be you're traveling by air, car, or even on foot. You want to travel with these files in separate locations. For instance, if you're on a plane, carry one file in your hold luggage, another file in your hand luggage, and maybe put the camera cards themselves on your person. That way you're covering yourself from loss or theft. If one of these bags goes missing, for instance, you've still got your images, which are the important thing after all, somewhere safe. Another good idea is if you've got a colleague traveling with you, maybe give one of those hard drives to your colleague. Even better if that colleague is traveling with a different mode of transport or on a different plane, you're completely separated. Even consider taking the camera cards themselves and then posting them or sending them by courier back to your office. That way you're completely and utterly secure with your data. When you're back in your office or at home, you want to think about how you're going to start working with those files there. And this is how I do it. I take my location drive, take those files or take the data from that location drive and copy them to my desktop. This, after all, is where I'm going to be doing most of my work. I then, from that desktop drive, copy them to the fastest hard drive that I have, and for me it's a G-Tech Studio RAID. It's the fastest drive I have, so that's going to be my main kind of workhorse where all of my data is stored. And it's important to have that on your fastest drive so you don't have a lag when you're copying information to and from your desktop computer. But of course you need a backup of that. So what I tend to do is daily, or sometimes if I've been working quite a lot, maybe at the end of every project, if a project only lasts a few hours on the computer, is use a program called Carbon Copy Cloner and copy that studio drive to a secondary drive. And that secondary drive is basically just a clone of my working drive. In fact, I've got two of these secondary backup drives. One of them that I always keep with me in my office next to my my studio drive. The next one goes off-site, and this is changed weekly. So I know that if anything was to happen to my office, at least I have that data, an exact copy of my my desktop drive at home or a different location. So if worst to worst, I at least have something that's at least a week old. What I also do as well is use with my Mac, I use a program called Time Machine, which is built into the operating system to do a complete and utter backup of my desktop computer. And this Mac users know that it's an automatic system that just happens in the background, and it kind of works hourly. So copy all your working files to your fastest drive, and then with Carbon Copy Cloner, copy into a second drive plus one off-site. And that way you really are securing yourself. So this on its own, I'm using 5 separate hard drives for my workflow. There's also the cloud. Now, if I had talked about this a couple of years ago, I would have said don't worry about the cloud. The cloud is a bit too slow, it's a bit too expensive, but these days it's getting faster and faster and getting more and more cost effective. So there's lots of systems that you can think about for using for the cloud. Things like Dropbox, Amazon, Google Drive, SmugMug, which I've started using for my own website. They all offer some cloud storage. SmugMug is particularly good because it offers unlimited storage, which is really, really handy for all those very, very large images that we're kind of pushing around the place. So cloud storage is definitely a way to start thinking forward. Next, it's, where is our pictures going to be in 10 years? I'm still finding on opening up boxes with old pictures in that are decades old that I'd completely forgotten about. How will digital files be treated? They'll just be a file on the computer. You won't necessarily open up a box and find a tangible thing. So maybe we should start printing out, making tangible objects from our digital files. Consider wall art. Everyone loves to have their work up on the wall. We spend thousands of pounds on amazing holidays and equipment. And what happens to these pictures? They stay on our computer. They might go on Facebook or some blog somewhere. Get them out, get them up on your wall. Really appreciate them. And then also photo books are coming really, really standard. Lots of people are doing these really cost effectively. Get those up, get them out of the computer, get them into a book, and you can really, really start to enjoy these pictures. Okay, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's enjoying what you've kind of captured. So that's kind of it, really. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you've got something out of that. If you want any more information, you can find me on my website, focusvisuals.com. or just search for me on Facebook, Focus Visuals. Please feel free to drop me a line. Thanks a lot.